What's my name? Matthew Mittelberg. Apologetics.
Let's look at a classic thought experiment from the philosopher Frank Jackson called the knowledge argument, also known as Mary's room. Imagine in the future there's a scientist named Mary, and she is the foremost expert on color. In fact, she knows so much about color that she knows all the physical facts about color. Every single physical fact there is to know about seeing red, seeing blue, seeing green, seeing whatever the other color is. She knows all about it, every single color there is. She is the ultimate color expert. However, there's a problem. Mary has lived her entire life in an underground facility without color. In other words, Mary is the foremost expert on color. She knows all the physical facts, and yet she has never seen color herself. If Mary was allowed to leave her room for the first time and she saw this, what would happen to Mary?
I don't know.
She would learn what it is like to see color. In fact, we'd have to be careful how much we showed her, because you look at any person who is colorblind and they try out glasses that allow them to see color for the first time. What immediately happens? They're overwhelmed. They become emotional. They realize that there's this whole feature of experience of a reality that they have never experienced before. Even though Mary knew all the physical facts about color, she had never experienced seeing color before, and when she does experience it, she learns something new, something irreducible to the physical facts. Our qualia, or our experience, cannot be reduced to simply inputs and outputs and data. It's something more. If this argument is successful, then it seems that reductive physicalism fails to accurately describe the world. There is more to life than just physics. Doesn't this line up so much better with our experience? There seems to be so many things that we believe in that can't be simply reduced down to their physical properties. Beauty, love, the soul, free will. These sorts of things can't be exhaustively described through physics. We don't have to artificially limit the way that we look at the world by a set of predetermined calculus that reduces everything to physics. Instead, we're able to see creation, reality as it is. There's a big, huge, beautiful universe out there, and it's comprised of more than just the physical stuff and forces of the universe. There's a spiritual dimension to reality, and this argument helps us to connect to that.
I'm familiar with the argument. I never considered it a very strong argument.
See, complaining already, like I told him.
Not a strong argument for I guess if you want to use it as an argument for theism or for just against physicalism or materialism or whatever you want to call it. I don't think in that regard it would be a strong argument. It is a thought-provoking question, though. That's what I could say. And there are already some issues with it. For example, like you brought up the soul as an example, which in and of itself would be a whole debate. Mm-hmm. When you ask a physicalist or a materialist about how to describe certain things that can't be described by physics alone, like the soul, then you are opening another whole door, which would be soul. Why did we agree at some point that the soul is real, that it exists? What exactly is it, and so on? So,
well, and I think we can, there's a whole debate around the soul and around the existence of soul, and I think there are really good arguments to believe in that. Near-death experiences, philosophical arguments for that. But I don't think
it's a whole different question. That's the problem.
Right. I don't think we need to necessarily even conclude that there's a soul. I think what this is kind of arguing against is reductive physicalism, the idea that everything can be exhaustively described by physics, and yet it seems like she learns something new, right? When she sees color, she learns this kind of knowledge by acquaintance of this phenomenal experience. Would you say that she
Yeah,
learned something new?
I get
Yeah.
that. I get that. I understand that, and I would say it is a thought provoking question. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a compelling argument. My issue with the whole soul part is just that when you bring that up as an example, then you are opening a whole new door of a discussion that needs to be had. Uh, so, but apart from that,
Sure.
yeah, the argument is surely thought provoking. I would say I'm familiar with it, and I personally just yeah, these were my thoughts.
All right.
Here's AP after watching a video from a Christian. That's kind of the real point of the video, right? Is to, like what Greg Kokel would refer to as putting a stone in someone's shoe, right? Like obviously there's a ton of issues involved and would be a big discussion on physicalism versus, some alternative or something like that. But hey guys, why don't you get thinking about this? Because notice there's a little issue. If you're a physicalist, there's kind of an issue here.
If you actually get into it, you would have to analyze one aspect of it, which is David, you are probably familiar with it as well, because you recently got jealous of my studies in psychology, and then you started studying psychology too. But where you, for example, got exposed to the neurological or neuroscientific or neuropsychological approaches in psychology, for example, and the conclusions that
it's a bunch of quack nonsense. Go ahead.
The conclusions that even in this example that we had, where Mary first learns about colors and then goes out and sees color for the first time and then has an experience and feels emotion, even the experiences, even the emotions that that you are feeling there, are not things that are beyond our explanation, are not things beyond our description. They can be very much described and actually reduced to physics. They can be reduced to biology. They can be tracked and explained in that way. So it's not something that is beyond our natural observation or explanation. It is actually a physical experience, like feeling love toward a person, feeling desire, being amazed by a certain sight, and all of that. It immediately does observable things in your body which make you feel a certain experience. So there is then again a very long debate about that.
I think that is exactly what we would expect, though, if we have under substance dualism or this idea that we have a soul and a body, that there's going to be a correlation between the two, that when you experience things, there's going to be a how your body responds to that. And you can try to reduce it all the way to that, but I don't think you need to. And it's not really about the way that her body's processing the neurons. Obviously there's something different happening when her eyes are reflecting certain wavelengths and all of that. It's the fact that she's supposed to be omniscient with regard to all the propositional facts prior to being out and seeing it physically, and yet somehow there seems to be this knowledge that can't be reduced to propositional knowledge.
Yeah.
The issue is that the only bridge that is missing there is so she already knows about it. She simply didn't go into the field and directly engage with it, but she already knows. There is nothing really added to the bank of her knowledge on the issue. She only makes a further experience to then understand the thing that she actually knew all along. Which
is what
then,
it's like to see that color.
Which is then the experience. So she gains the experience, but she doesn't learn anything about the facts of the matter, right? She only makes an experience of how these facts, for example, how I don't know how you would say that, how they are observed, how they show themselves, how you perceive them when you look at them, and so on. She doesn't actually learn any difference about the very nature of those things that she's now exposed to.
Yeah, I don't know. I think she has to learn something there. Yes, she has a new experience, but she is learning what it's like to see blue, what it's like to see red. She's seeing these colors, and I think she's gaining, and I think it speaks to the kind of being that we are, that you can't You can't. You have to actually have that phenomenological experience of that to actually have that knowledge. So I don't
But I
know
wouldn't
that,
say
but I will say
I
that
don't think I don't think this challenges physicalism though.
Well, it's if the claim is that everything can be reduced to description by physical, laws of physics and so on, something like that, then the idea is even if you, so it sounds like AP you're saying, but her experiences, I can explain all that in terms of physics. Like, yes, suppose you could like absolutely write out everything that you knew as far as physics is concerned. Is there something that's left out of that account? If so, then it seems like you need to change your description of reality, because
Yeah, so
everything can be described.
yeah.
Yeah.
There are two things. One is that the experience which is being had there can be completely laid out and described, and there is nothing left that is beyond your comprehension or explanation or beyond nature, whatever it is. And the other aspect is that nothing is actually being learned about the very nature of whatever she knew. So she doesn't learn anything new about that. What she learns is the new things she does learn at that point are how she subjectively interacts with that very thing, and how that very thing that she already knows about and about which she learns nothing new, how it displays itself in the world.
But it is supposed to be baked in that she knows everything about color perception and what it means to perceive this knowledge. Not just that she knows about color, but she knows what it means to perceive color, and yet she has this experience. But I'll just say, if you want more about this, my buddy Parker's Pensies, he has a channel on this, and he interviewed Frank Jackson on the subject himself. So
yeah, AP, have you interviewed Frank Jackson?
I know about Michael Jackson. Okay.
Well, why don't you beat it?
First, we observe design. Nowhere is this more clear than the fine-tuning of the universe. Scientists have so far discovered over 100 parameters and constants that had to be just so in order for life to be possible anywhere in the universe. And that's just the way the universe actually is. The agnostic physicist Paul Davies said, "The fact that these relations are necessary for our existence is one of the most fascinating discoveries of modern science." One example of fine-tuning is the gravitational constant. This is the number that determines the force of gravity. If this number were to change by 1 part in 10 to the 60th power, life would be impossible.
Someone like AP is sitting here thinking, so you're saying there's a chance?
No, you know the most common response to that, right?
Look at him getting enraged. Go ahead.
You know,
go and tell us.
Like, one of the most common responses to that is that there is such a little chance, and when you get that chance, you think, "Wow, there is such a little chance. Okay, something must have done this. Somebody must have created this." That's basically what's happening. What some people say, but then. On the other hand, I would say
the stupid response.
For example, the objection that Richard Dawkins and many others have to it. Also, the one guy who wrote that book. I don't even remember his name.
This is literally and yes,
Universe
the one guy who wrote that book. He's completely refuted all this stuff. Oh yeah, what's the book called? The book's called Trust Me, Bro.
No, what's it called? Universe from Nothing. I keep forgetting the guy's name. He has such a forgettable name to me. I think it's called The Universe from Nothing. Remind me. The response is basically that they don't agree at all with the whole observation here with this chance. What they do agree, however, is that within the universe that exists, which necessarily exists, it is there is very little chance that life would form on a planet, which is why on most planets life does not form. Only on very few of them it successfully comes into existence and successfully develops to a detectable level. But that this does not indicate that there's a design or a creation behind it, but rather that there is simply, a low chance, which in and of itself doesn't really mean anything.
Hey,
but
AP,
yeah, continue.
AP, I have a new challenge. New challenge. Tell me you have no
Lawrence Krauss. Lawrence Krauss. Exactly. That's who it was. Lawrence Krauss. Yeah. Okay.
Just so you know, quoting Lawrence Krauss to us would be like a guy citing Zucker Nike. I have a challenge for you. Show me you know absolutely nothing about the fine-tuning argument without telling me you know absolutely nothing about the fine-tuning argument. Oh, you
I
just
wasn't
did. You
responding.
just did.
I wasn't responding to the general fine-tuning argument. I was responding to the very aspect of it that that Matthew here brought up at that point.
And you're completely wrong. What are your thoughts on the nonsense AP just spouted, Matt?
Yeah, it's hard to know where to start with it. Yeah, it seems like you're ignoring kind of just the picture of, it's not proof that God exists, right? It's not absolute proof, but it is an incredibly strong case to say, look, things are so finely tuned. There's a 99.9999% chance that we get a result where life can't exist. It's not a life permitting universe. It's not a life sustaining universe. And yet we happen to find ourselves in one where things are set up exactly the way that they need to be for life to exist. It's like getting, 10 royal flushes in a row and going, but it could be chance, right? Like it could be chance. Well, yeah, but it seems like it's probably designed. It's probably designed this way.
Yeah, I think of it in terms of because as you mentioned, like any sort of scenario is going to be massively improbable. Like if I were to list all the things that I did today and were to go back in time and say, what are the odds that I would do all of these things in that order? It would be insanely, massively, ridiculously improbable. And so if a universe is going to form, and that, it's a separate argument about how you get a universe at all. But if a universe is going to form, sort of any universe that formed would be massively improbable as far as whatever particular laws of nature you have. So I think of it in terms of goal-directed versus non-goal-directed. If something is, if there are a bunch of requirements that are necessary for life, it looks like you could think of that as there's an actual, there's a reason for it to be this way. Versus a non-goal directed. And so it's when you see something that looks like it's a goal-directed system, a goal-directed outcome, then you start thinking, okay, I think of it in like Bayesian terms, like, okay, if there's nothing to pick any scenario over any other scenario, how probable is it that it would be something like we have now? Seems massively improbable. Just as any particular outcome would seem massively improbable. If you have an agent involved who is picking one, then is it surprising that you get something that's a kind of goal-directed system where it looks like something is being selected for a purpose? Well, there it wouldn't. And so I would say it would favor an agent over none. The evidence would favor an agent over
right, because if God is creating a world and he wants to have relationship with human beings, he wants to have a relationship with beings that can exist, then he's going to create a kind of world where we can exist. And it's just like, a lottery, right? Let's say it's 1 in 10 million that any one person wins the lottery. We don't look at that one person and go, oh, you couldn't possibly have won the lottery, because it's 1 in 10 million. No, of course, it's possible that one of them wins. But if it's, let's say it's the lottery commissioner's sister and she wins the lottery, then we go, seems like there's some sort of design here. And let's say she wins it twice or 3 times or 4 times in a row. Suddenly it's like, seems a lot more likely that the system's been rigged for.
That's not really how it is, though. That would be a false analogy. Like, let me just ask you one simple question, which is,
it's not a false analogy.
You both basically just answered the question, but if we were to assume, and I'm not even granting it, and I know that those who object to the argument don't grant it either, because it is never proven, it is just suggested. But let us say that it is true that there is such an extreme unlikelihood that life could come into existence in a specific universe, and that if something was slightly tweaked, it didn't work. Let us grant that. Is there still a possibility that it simply happened on its own and that there is no creator behind it?
So you're saying there's a chance. You're saying there's a chance. Yeah. The argument is not this is the only possibility. The argument is, here are the things that are necessary for life that's anywhere in the ballpark of what we think of as life. You need a lot of things. You need a very particular kind of universe. If you start changing things like the law of gravity and so on, you don't even get the basic components that you would need to have life. And so the more precise things are, the more it looks, the less probable it is that that you got this precise outcome by chance. Just as he's pointing, it was winning the lottery once. I would say, oh, it's improbable, but if it happened, it happened. If you won 10 times in a row or 20 times in a row, you'd start go, okay, this is obvious. There's something else going on here, because it doesn't happen like that by chance. And so when you have all the factors involved and how precise some of these things need to be, yes, the argument is not it's impossible. It's just the more precise things are, the less probable chance seems.
It's actually to put it more accurately, it's actually that there is it's also from our perspective as observers, you can't even really put a number or anything to it. You can't even really picture it, but there would be a range of possibilities. There would be a range that you could describe as a vast range or a very tiny range under which it would be possible for life, for example, to form, or for a functioning universe to, I don't know, come into existence or pop into existence or to exist, whatever you want to call it. And under different circumstances within this range, it could still happen. Things would just be different. Things could be slightly different, maybe more orderly, maybe less orderly, or if you can't even define orderliness or order in the universe. So there is a range. We have no way of describing that range and telling if it's a big range or a small range. That's all completely relative. There are many possibilities. It's not like there was only one chance, a very tiny chance of things being exactly put in a very specific way. And if it weren't put in that very specific way, nothing would work. That's not really how it is.
You're misunderstanding the constants. It's it's about existence. I mean, the one that I'm giving here, you'll hear me explain. If the gravitational constant is different by that amount, it's not like we get planets that are a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller or something like that. It's we can't have planet formation at all. There's no
that's also a range. That's also a range. I mean, none of us here are scientists in the field, but so from my reading and my observation of the whole discussion is also
your reading of Lawrence Krauss,
that even that is within a certain range. It's not like we often make it look like we are talking about a system or numbers or, like, I don't know, certain things that you twist and adjust accordingly. But in every single term within this argument, we are talking about ranges that are indescribable, that you and I cannot possibly describe to each other. But there are just different possibilities, and none of this implies, as you guys of course admit, that therefore it is impossible. It is only as
didn't say that.
I know.
Quit straw manning us. Quit straw manning us, atheists. All right, go.
Yeah, that's why I just acknowledged that you also acknowledge this, which you also say. So it's about possibilities, and then when we talk about possibilities, then I would say, yeah, of course, this is a very interesting, a very thought-provoking argument, a very thought-provoking discussion. However, it is just an endless discussion about something that both of the sides can make compelling arguments over and over again. It will not positively prove or present empirical evidence for either of these things. Plus, there's also, David, you know very well, there's also the whole thing of explaining this with a multiverse, for example. Right?
Yeah, there's that.
There's that aspect too.
I think that's just like the person at the poker table saying, "Hey, it's possible. I got 10 royal flushes in a row. You guys can't argue with
exactly
me.
AP's reason.
It's possible. It's definitely possible.
No,
we can make both sides. Both sides can make arguments.
Yeah,
we got possibilities.
And AP's wrong. He's saying no. It's not like that because we don't even know the range. Yeah, you can calculate the probability of getting a royal flush. There are different kinds of games with different numbers of cards and so on, but you can calculate the exact probability of getting a royal flush. And when we're talking about the when we're talking about the laws of nature and so on, and the constants, they can actually break down. If you change it by this much, here's what happened. It's not like they're just, oh, we think it might change like this if this happened. It's they can say, no, if it changes this much, you don't have stars anymore.
How much, David? How much?
I've seen the one I remember from way back in the day was if you want to know how precise the gravitational constant, then think of an old school radio dial on a car, and think of that radio dial being the length of the entire universe, and the dial is set where it is.
No, wait, you're getting ahead on the video here.
If you mentioned,
David,
you're talking about that?
We're getting to that.
Okay, well, yeah, AP, that's a good question. Why don't you let him finish the argument, AP? Oh, no, we can't. Let's talk it. Let me back up a little.
1 part in 10 to the 60th power for our existence is one of the most fascinating discoveries of modern science. One example of fine-tuning is the gravitational constant. This is the number that determines the force of gravity. If this number were to change by 1 part in 10 to the 60th power, life would be impossible. That's a 1 with 60 zeros after it. That's a number that's so incomprehensibly big that I can't even begin to wrap my mind around it.
AP's like, no, zero's nothing.
But here's an analogy from Dr. Rob.
My immediate thought to that is, yeah, that's very impressive from your perspective.
Yes, but not from my perspective, because I don't know anything about it.
No, also from my perspective. But that's the problem. It's from your perspective. From your perspective, the universe is.
See, what's true for you is true for you. I'm speaking
my
truth.
If there was a giant observer that is larger than the universe itself, it wouldn't be probably that impressive, right? Yeah. For example, let's say it was God, it wouldn't be that impressive. It is so impressive from your very limited experience. That's it.
So,
welcome to atheism.
Therefore,
folks.
God.
All right.
Therefore, God.
That might be helpful. Imagine a ruler that's stretched across the
there we go.
entire
I remember that
universe
one.
in 1 inch increments. Billions upon billions upon billions of inches. And the gravitational constant is set at just 1 of those inches. And if you move it 1 inch relative to the size of the entire universe, life could not exist. That's
AP, I just broke something down for you, and then immediately it was exactly what he was saying. And yet, everything is coincidence. Everything is coincidence to AP.
Unbelievably precise calculation. If it was bigger by that increment, the universe would have expanded too rapidly and stars never would have been able to form. Or if it was smaller by that increment, the universe would have just collapsed back in on itself. That's just one example of over 100 that had to be exactly right. We did not get that lucky. So fine-tuning is powerful evidence that the universe we observe has been intentionally designed by someone who cares about our existence.
It doesn't actually answer any question that any regular person has as an objection to this.
It is the perfect explanation.
Like, for example, I could say that almost anybody here in the chat could agree on one thing here, which is if I asked you and said, hey, okay, I understand. Yeah, we're talking about all of these possibilities, all of these, these millions and billions, a bunch of zeros, which are very big and very impressive. Okay, and under which circumstances gravity could come into existence. Okay, very, very nice. But let's say this is an argument meant to convince people. Can you please tell me in very simple terms what exactly had to be done in order for gravity or just existence to form? Can you explain this in simple terms? You will sit down and explain it again, like here, and everyone, and the vast majority of people watching this will still be left not understanding what is being said at all. However, they will pick a side and agree or disagree.
No, that's wrong, because here's what you will actually have. AP, someone will say, hey, you just explained it very clearly, but I still don't get it. Could you make it simpler, please? And you say, yes. Okay.
I'm convinced 80% of the chat or 90% of the chat doesn't understand the argument.
Okay. So here's what you would do.
And I'm not saying that because I'm saying that the chat
you see how I can't let anyone talk?
I'm saying that because this is a problem, because it is a problem of a regular human, and an argument that is about the existence of God and your responsibility to acknowledge it needs to be appealing to a regular human. You can't go like this.
Yeah. So
But go ahead.
Here it goes. So you take something like law of gravity, and there's this constant in here. There's this constant. There's a constant. There's a number.
Mhm.
You don't just put the you don't just put the other numbers. You don't just say, oh, here's the distance and here's the weight of this one square and the weight of that. You don't do that. It's there's a constant in there, and that constant is a number. It's a big weird looking number. Okay, if that number changed even slightly, you don't exist. And if it changes a little more slightly, nothing that we could even conceive of as life would be here. So the point is, there are a bunch of these numbers in the laws of nature, and they have to be really precise. Some of them, as you're pointing out, there can be a range, but for some of them, it's a very, very small range, very, very tiny range. Like if you had if it was a dial along the length of the entire universe, if you moved it this much in either direction, nothing like you could be here. And so it's still possible that happens. It's still possible that it's right there. It looks like there's a point to it. Just like if I went somewhere and everything was set up for something like me to be there, it would seem to me, if I went someplace and the temperature is right, and so it would look to me like really, really look to me like it's set up that way. And the more precise it would have to be, like suppose human beings, we can survive in a pretty wide range of environments and so on. But imagine we could only survive if the temperature were like exactly 72 degrees, and if it was like a degree higher or a degree lower, then we're dead, and we end up in a place and the temperature is exactly like that, and it's always like that. I don't know. It looks like it's kind of made that way.
And this
That's
has
cool.
convinced
But
a lot of people.
What is the number, David? Can you tell me what the number is?
What the gravitational constant? You want me to look it up? I'll look it up right now.
10 to the 60th power. I said it earlier. Yeah, 1 in 10 to the 60th power.
Okay.
And
what is
that's the probability.
And what is the range of numbers that have to be
if you want to really dive into this, Luke Barnes has written a book on it. Robin Collins has written books on it as well. That'll
but I'm asking you, can you give me the number and the range?
Well, I can give you the range. It's 1 in 10 to the 60th power.
Yeah, meaning if you alter it that much.
Yeah.
Okay, if you alter it that much, what would happen if it was at the lower end or at the higher end? What exactly would be different?
As I said in the video, if it's bigger by that amount, then it is then planets aren't able to form, and if it's smaller by that amount, then the universe collapses back in on itself.
Hey, I know Luke Barnes. Why don't we get Luke Barnes on here? And AP, you can pick one of your friends that you think can respond to that, and we'll get two physics guys on here.
Why the argument is being made? I want to ask a question because the argument is being made. Why would I have to go to the guy who is who studies it and presents it in the most advanced way? I would like to just since we're having a discussion and this argument is being used, I would like to ask the people who make the argument or who present the argument about the details of this argument.
It's 6. The gravitational constant is 6.67430 blah 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 times 10 to the negative 11th meters cubed times kilograms to the negative 1 times times seconds. This is if you so you put that, you have to put that in because you have the other anyway, you have the units in various places in it, but that's what he's saying. So Matt is saying that if you change that number by 1 in 10 to the
60th power.
So if you change it that slightly, then we're not here.
So what if you changed it just a little bit? What would happen?
You're not here. Which part of you're not here didn't you understand?
I understand that, but we're talking about a range, right? And you're saying to change it slightly. So as from my understanding, when you say there is a range and you're saying change it slightly, that
Hmm.
implies that not changing it in
So
any
you're
way,
you're asking
there is a
what would
range
happen if
in which it could change.
you're
Yeah,
asking what would happen if it would change
he's
by
saying
10 to the 61 power or something like that?
Yeah, less than whatever range you're giving me. Yeah,
I don't think that's a very interesting question.
yeah,
The question
I think it
is
is.
why is it that it's so finely tuned that it's exactly the way it needs to be down to 60 decimal points?
yeah.
I understand that, but I'm curious. But I'm curious because I'm curious about the question.
So
What happens?
you're just trying to change the subject, right?
Ouch.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm
Darn.
trying to figure out what exactly happens in that range
Yeah, here's
because you make the explanation that it's like it has to be exactly this way, and if you slightly changed it, even the language used here, if it's slightly changed, then things would not be possible. Okay, then I want to understand if this is the argument given, if it's about a constant and about the possibilities, and about a range as we have been saying the entire time, then I want to get into the details of exactly what that change is, or what that range is, if that range is actually that impressive, and what exactly would happen if there was
yeah,
a smaller change than what you allow.
and notice what you're saying. You're saying what exactly would happen, in which case we say, okay, why don't we get a physicist on to explain exactly what would happen in whatever increment you're talking about? And you say, no, don't do that. Like, wait a minute. What's
I'm not saying do that. I'm not saying not don't do that. I'm saying since you present this as a strong argument, when you present a very strong argument, I would like to actually engage with the details of this argument because it looks like the number that is given has some great meaning and it sounds very impressive to me or to the average person. But then, is it actually that impressive? Is it actually that impressive? Is the range that we are talking about really a very impressive range, or is it just a range, and there are actually quite many possibilities? And the fact that we are currently in a functioning universe where things came into existence and where things work the way they are, would there also be possibilities in a multiverse setting, for example, where there are an undefined, indescribable number of universes, and some of them function and others don't? And if we somehow end up in one that functions, is it really surprising that we then say, wow, how did this happen? How did this happen? There must be a designer behind it, as opposed to landing in one which doesn't function, which is not even possible. It's very normal that when there's a very tiny chance and you end up in a possibility where it actually works, you think, wow, there's a very small chance, and I actually landed in it. There must be a creator behind this.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're missing a little bit of the point here. It's not about
I don't think so. I don't think so.
yeah, I think you are. I think you're getting distracted by what, particle physics would do in certain scenarios, and you're
Yeah.
missing the fact that, things are very, very finely tuned to an order in the gravitational constant, 1 to 10 to the 60th power. You want to look at the cosmological constant, it's way more than that. There are all these other constants. And the question is, why are we winning the lottery 10 times in a row? Why are we winning the lottery 10 times in a row?
Yeah, notice
And
AP. You can win the lottery 10 times in a row. It's within the realm of
yeah, it's
possibility.
possible.
You would not
Yeah,
believe
it's
that it
possible.
happened if someone told you it happened. Unless
That's
unless
again
unless
a
someone
false
said
analogy.
unless someone said that you have to change your religious beliefs if you think that
No,
this
that's
happens 10 times
again
in a
a false analogy. If I would say that is a correct analogy if you could compare it to an observable chances of universes coming into existence where life forms, and we observe it and we say, okay, well, 10 out of so many times it actually happened. Interesting. That would be then a correct analogy. In this case, we are just comparing something to something else that we cannot even observe.
Yeah, well, if you're going to go multiverse, and I can say, well, there's this infinite array of universes where I didn't win 10 times in a row, but I won 10 times in a row here. And you'd be fine with that, right? So you wouldn't have any
No,
questions.
that's the problem. The comparison here is absurd. You can't even make such a comparison. There's no way of comparing winning the lotto 10 times in a row to life coming into existence.
You're right, because one of those is massively more improbable.
No, because you can't observe and you can't possibly present any evidence for one of these. You can make speculations, and once you end up in a functioning one, you will think, whoa, 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 what are the odds? Yes, exactly, what are the odds?
But that
I
that
don't
can.
think we need to be able to. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm just saying. If you have this entire range, if you do know the odds, if you have this entire range of values of what that constant could be, and that constant could be anything along that range, and you say, what are the odds that it's in this narrow range for life? You can actually calculate the odds. There's all the possibilities. Here's the target area, and you can actually do the math. And that's the point. You find out it's massively improbable, because if you change it even slightly, you're not here. And if it were one, maybe you have a case. When it's a bunch of them, then it starts, I don't know, it really sounds like, so you're saying there's a chance.
I think
the correct analogy would be, if you want to go with the lotto, it would actually be, you win the lotto once in your life and you think, wow, there is such an incredibly low chance for me to win the lotto, and I actually won. Mm-hmm. There must be something behind this.
No, it's a bunch of lottos.
And it's a bunch of lottos, and you're related to the commissioner. It's a specified win. It's not just a random win. It's a
AP. If someone said there's a lotto and I have a 1 in 10 to the 60th chance of winning, there's not. You could, if 100,000 planets worth of people are all playing that, it would still be massively improbable that even one person wins a lotto like that. When you say, hey, I will only exist if I win these 100 different lottos with all these insane odds, and I won them all, I'm here, it kind of looks like the game is rigged. That's kind of the takeaway.
That is if you put all the different constants together and say, okay, this must
like
be
they are in our universe.
I know, but in the end, we are talking about these constants being in different ranges and still aligning. Mm-hmm. In the end, correct me if I'm wrong, we're not talking about how everything has to be precisely the same in order for life to come into existence. There is a range of how things may be.
And some of those
small range.
Yeah, some of those have a wider. Yes, some of those have a wider range than others. But even, I mean, AP, it's like if I say what are the odds of getting a royal flush? Well, there are multiple ways to get a royal flush. You can get a royal flush made of clubs. You can get a royal flush of spades, a royal flush of hearts, and so you get. They're different. There's a range of possibilities there. You can still calculate the probability of getting a royal flush, just like you can say, here's the narrow range that would be life permitting of this constant. That's, you say, okay, let's suppose the range is like this. Well, compared to what? You can actually calculate that. So if it's a range of, let's say, 1,000 light years or something like that, and this is the narrow range, you can actually calculate the odds of getting that narrow range. And when you take them all into account, starts looking suspicious, and I think you're weird if you don't find it suspicious.
No, I think it. Of course, it looks very impressive, but then again, here is what I'm saying. If there was only one possibility, if everything had to be precisely the same way for life to form, I would say, okay, you know what, that is some impressive stuff here. If you're talking about a range of possibilities, and especially different ranges, I would say, okay, that's quite impressive, and I understand why that is impressive, and I actually do think it is impressive. However, I don't think that it's necessarily a great an actual argument, or even a very compelling evidence for the point that you are making, that there is a designer, because you could very much also along that path, although with less confidence, say, I won the lotto. What are the odds? There must be something behind this. This is all I'm saying. It is
going
impressive,
going back to the original point of the video, is that the world we look at, the world we actually observe, doesn't look like one that was just randomly thrown together.
That is
true. It looks like one that has been finely tuned for life. It looks like one with design and purpose and meaning. And it's like looking at somebody says, I'm going to have this computer randomly design a program, and it's just going to randomly put some code in there, and it's going to be randomly generated. And then we come in and we look at it and we go, Yes, Breath of the Wild. Yes, we've got Zelda. We've got all these characters. We've got all this storyline, impressive graphics, all of these things. Yes, this is exactly what we should. This is exactly the properties we should expect given the randomness of this program design. No, of course not. We would say no. It looks like it was designed for a reason. It was, there's all this code here, and wow, it looks like it had to be exactly the way that it is within a range, for it to be the way that it is. And that's the kind of world that we have.
Yeah, and with so one, I think what he's talking about there is perfectly valid, and it's that the point of the video isn't here is a foolproof argument for the existence of God. It's just, hey, this looks like something that was put together. Dawkins is saying the universe doesn't look like something.
He agrees. He agrees.
No,
I
agree.
Atheist agrees. Dawkins is wrong and stupid.
No, that's the problem. This is why I get so tired listening to these specific arguments. I agree with both sides. Like when I agree, for example, with somebody who says, the universe looks like there's a lot of aimless nonsense going on. The vast majority of it makes no sense and is just futile things flying around, crashing into each other, accidents happening. None of it makes any sense. Only a tiny minority of it is actually functioning. And it looks like there is no purpose here at all. It's just coincidence. I would say, yeah, good, interesting. This is impressive, good argument. Maybe we should think about that further. If you then say, well, no, it looks like there is some real design at work because there is a very low likelihood for something like this to even happen, and extremely low. It looks like there is more to this. I would say, yeah, okay, I agree with that too. It looks like it. Yes, these are interesting points to raise and interesting evidences toward these points, but that's all it is. There is no empirical evidence in the end. Plus, we are limited to our observations.
If you're reading Lawrence Krauss, though, you owe it to yourself to read.
I am not reading. I'm not reading Lawrence.
If you're reading Lawrence Krauss, you should slap yourself silly. That's all I'll say.
I read C.S. Lewis instead.
Yeah. So and with we should actually like figure out and people have done this. So we should check out like probability stuff and what is kind of beyond the realm of possibility. In other words, if you say, hey, oh man, I won the lottery. That's really, really surprising. Well, you can actually calculate the odds of winning the lottery and calculate how many cracks are being taken at that. In other words, how many trials are there? So how many people are actually playing the lottery? And that's why sometimes people don't win the lottery and then the number goes up and so on. But when you're talking about something like 10 to the 60th power or anything in that range, it's kind of you're in kind of a totally different realm. The stuff when you say, hey, what are the odds of winning the lottery with this number of people playing, then it's a good chance someone's going to win the lottery. So it's not surprising that someone wins the lottery. And that's why it is relevant if you do have something like a multiverse, because that's the number of cracks you get to take at reaching a certain probability. But
the issue is it is less probable. It is more probable for someone to win the lottery. So it might be less impressive. For example, to you as an outside observer, for somebody who actually wins the lottery, and let's say it's like one person in the nation or one person in the world, and one person actually wins it after engaging in some certain prayer or a certain worship, and then comes to you and argues with you, and you say, there's actually a possibility, and it so happens that it hit you this time. That person could convince you, no, this is an extremely impressive, improbable, almost nearly improbable chance. It happened. There must be something greater behind this.
And so the if you wanted to actually tie it and say, okay, I played these 100 different lotteries. I played these 100 different lotteries, all of different degrees of probability as far as winning, and I prayed and I won all 100 of them. That's what it would be like in saying,
I would have to disagree.
I won all 100. That is exactly, it was the perfect analogy.
All right. let's
I think
move on.
it actually
Yeah, you see this?
it actually
You see this?
misinterprets the argument.
Everything has to turn into a 3-hour argument with this guy. When you make a
Because you
simple
make
point.
terrible points.
No, people make perfectly reasonable points. You say, "Oh, look,
Like-
2 + 2 is 4." Prove to me that. How do I know? How do I know that it's not different in the Andromeda galaxy?
It's like you walk into a gathering of scientists and you present this point, and the scientists are like, "That's not really how it is," and you're like, "You guys are just ignorant. You guys are just blind. You just don't see it. You just don't agree."
No, you go in there and all the
continue.
No, you go in there and all the scientists say you are exactly right, which is why some people conclude that there's a God. But I don't conclude that. That's what the scientists actually say. They actually say, yeah, it is mind-bogglingly improbable, but
that's what they say.
I don't believe in God for other reasons.
But the science does not say that it therefore points with an extremely high probability at something else doing this. This is not what the science says. The science stops there.
Well, we've got to make a conclusion based off of that.
No.
That's what.
Do you hear this? This is an atheist saying, don't draw conclusions about stuff.
No.
Don't look at the evidence and draw conclusions. Just
yeah.
All right. Yeah. I'm gonna head out. So God bless, guys. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Catch you later, man.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. God bless you.
Did you just say God bless you?